Very much, Mr. Toastmaster. Fellow Masters, members of the Toastmasters, we are all used to being asked random questions in table topics. But what happens when you are asked a question and you have to take a stance that may be against what you might believe in? Say you are a Lakers fan, and then you are being told to defend the Boston Celtics. Ooh. Find out what happens tonight on Point Counterpoint. You will each at random, one of you will have uh, 2 minutes to defend the point. And then when I say counterpoint, a random member of the panel here will have to give the counterpoint to the argument. Starting right now. To all of you, good luck and let's have some fun. Starting with the following question. Among different hobbies, people love to listen to music. But what the people can't necessarily agree on is which decade for music which was better. Now, which do you think was better for music? The 70s or the 80s? Neha.
I haven't listened to either the 70s or 80s much, but I will go with the 80s because stereotype says that that's when you got like the disco music. And I think that's very groovy and fun, and you can dance to it and dress up cool. And what else? It's lively, it's vibrant and groovy. I just don't see why you couldn't love 80s music. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Yeah. So the neon pastel colors would definitely fit you, huh? Well then, counterpoints. Why were the 70s better? Mark.
Well, I am awfully glad you asked me that question. Now, it's interesting because you can go on television and you can actually go into the higher channels, and on there are 70s music, and you can play that, or you can play 80s music. And that's just what I did last week. I listened to 80s music for a couple of hours, and then I thought to myself, I'm not really liking this music that much. So I went over to the 70s. And you know what? They were far more creative. That was a time just at the end of the 60s and the 70s when they had singer songwriters who would come up with songs. Now, I don't know if any of you have seen the movie The Martian, in which someone is trapped on Mars. And guess what? The only music that was left to him to listen to, he almost committed suicide rather than listen to disco for all the time he was stuck there. So, what does that say about disco and the age of the 80s? It was a veritable desert of of music that had was shallow, vain, and self-indulgent, and those were its good points. So all I can say is that if you want to get good music, you've got to go back to the 70s when you had the amazing music, when the Beatles were still going, and Neil Young and Cat Stevens and all of those amazing singer-songwriters. That was the age That was an age when music meant something. So I would urge each and every one of you to reject the 80s. Pretend it never existed. Wipe it, those 10 years from the face of the earth as a lost period of time in music. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Yes. Yeah, perhaps the 80s should perhaps apologize to for the mullet. No offense to anyone here if you had a mullet. Now, sitcoms were known for having having a different style. Some would have a laugh track, like for example, Friends or Fresh Prince of Bel Air. Being filmed in front of a live studio audience. And meanwhile, you have the sitcoms like Modern Family uh, uh, or The Office or Superstore that are not filmed in front of a live studio in the audience, where you at home are the one who decide what is funny. Which style do you think is better? Oh, Christian.
Well, thank you very much for this very interesting question. I actually don't know what to answer. I am not familiar with sitcoms. I even don't understand sitcoms. I'm always puzzled when people are laughing because there's in the background some artificial laughing, or people say, "Oh, now you should laugh at this point." So I even don't know which sitcom is better when another one. So I'm sorry, I can't really answer that question. I'm very honest. Thank you very much.
It's okay. Sometimes, when it's artificial laugh, it doesn't always. No, but you know what? In rebuttal, let's see what. Hey! I'm not looking at the names. I can only pick out what. I swear, I did not look at the name. Like I said, I did not look at the name. Dennis, what you got to say?
Ladies and gentlemen, I got some advice for you about the whole sitcom situation. Whether it's in front of a live studio audience or not, it really doesn't matter as long as they're making money and the audience is laughing and everyone's cheering up. Because we know in these times, it hasn't been any more important for people to be cheered up and get their state of mind in a better place than what they had. Now, I do have to admit that when you think about it and you think about Toastmasters and you think about the situation of sitcoms, whether it's live in front of a studio audience or you're now online and the audience is out there, it becomes kind of an interesting idea that we have transitioned from a live studio setting of Toastmasters to an online platform. What is even more interesting, when you look in gallery view at all the faces around you, and you can go back in time to think about a sitcom that might mimic this very scenario that I believe was actually still filmed in front of a live studio audience, was in fact the Brady Bunch. And if we are, in fact, the Brady Bunch, and this is a sitcom, and you're sitting somewhere in a square and you can see yourself, you may be thinking, I should be playing the role of a tiny little blonde girl right now. And you're maybe not ready to take on that role. That could be a whole nother question that you need to ask yourself. But think about it. We've gone from in the past, the Brady Bunch, back when it was being made in a live studio audience, to the future of Toastmasters. The Brady Bunch of Toastmasters are right here in front of you, where you get an opportunity to play that special role that you've always wanted to play. Back to you, Mr. Table Topic Master.
Well, if you're going to make a Brady Bunch reference, well then, Marsha. Well, you know what? While we're talking about hobbies that we like, you know, a hobby that we all, many of us have, include sports. Now, sports can be a great passion that we all have. And in sports, there have been many great rivalries. Which rivalry can you think of that is one of the greatest ever? Ooh, it's me. Okay, well, one of the greatest ones that I can think of, ladies and gentlemen, is the Boston Celtics versus the LA Lakers. The reason why, ladies and gentlemen, is they're going back to the 1980s. Back in the 1980s, the Lakers ruled during the Showtime era, back when there was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Magic Johnson ruling the NBA. Back now, then they did not like the Celtics, except especially when Larry Bird was taken over with the Celtics. And oh boy, Larry Bird actually in a statement, Magic Johnson admitted he did not like Larry Bird, and at times they like it would get ugly in that crowd, but it made for one of the greatest games that ever, especially during the playoffs. You could get some of the greatest entertainment ever at the Forum before the Lakers would make the Staples Center their home. But with that is who wants? Are you ready to counterpoint that? That Monica, or you're on mic? You're on mute.
Sorry, I didn't catch. What's your question?
Can you think of a great sport rivalry?
Rivalry, that's the competitor?
Yeah,
Sorry, I don't understand the word.
like there's been like a lot of space, like a sports rivalry, like two teams or two athletes that do not like each other.
So Monica, I'll give you an example. You're into tennis. So I would imagine you know who Andre Agassi is. So did he have a big rival in his life, Andre Agassi, as a tennis player?
No, sorry, I don't know people too much.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about John McEnroe?
Hmm.
Can I skip the question?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And finally, the last question. Some people love to now traveling is can be done in both ways. It can be done by either going through the world alone, or some prefer to see the world with others. Do you think which do you think is better, Lionel?
Are you asking the best place to travel?
Yes. Traveling in either alone or with someone.
It's easy, very easy to say for me at this time of COVID, more than 2 years far from my native country. I wonder when I will be able to sit in a couch, just watching the beach seeing my feet and drinking a beer, that shine from the tropical country like Dominican Republic. That's the best place right now for me to visit because this COVID had me here just too much. I think it's like an oasis for me. And I've been trying to have fortitude being so long time far from my mother and brother. But when I go there, I'll be happy, and it's different. It's different. I love the snow. As you may know, when I came here, I only knew one season, summer. That's boring. But now I'm missing that part of that beautiful place, that Dominican Republic. For now, answering your question, right now, with this situation, I'm crazy. I would like to be just 2 or 3 weeks in my beautiful country, Dominican Republic, with the sun in my face. Back to you, Mr. Table Topic Master.
Counterpoint. Karen.
All right. So I just want to confirm 2 things. Lionel, are you going with somebody to visit your brother, or are you going solo to visit your brother?
Well, in Dominican Republic, the how you call this in English?
Handcuffs?
Handcuff, it's the same word that esposa. It's like spouse. It's the same. I will be going with my spouse to the Dominican Republic. The same word, handcuff and spouse is the same word in Spanish. I will be going with my spouse.
But I remember a few Toastmasters sessions back, you had a very interesting honeymoon with your esposa. So that's enough of that. All right.
Long time ago.
Karen, bring it home.
So I just want to say that if Lionel is going to be traveling with his esposa to go visit his brother in the Dominican Republic, I am going to challenge Pierre as well, because I am going solo and I am going to visit the Formula One races. And because the greatest rivals that ever were had to do with Mika Hakkinen and Michael Schumacher, David Coulthard and Jacques Villeneuve, and all of those rivalries. I don't want anybody coming with me because I'm at the track at 6 o'clock watching as the drivers and the crew ride on in. And then I know that I can sneak into where the pit crews are and I can see what they're doing to every car, what their chassis setup is. Are they going on slick tires? Are they going on hard compound? Are they filling their gas tanks full out? What's the strategy here? And then, of course, when I see those Formula One racers in their tight little uniforms driving up to pit row, you get a nice little wave, and then I head up to the stands and I've got my timer and myself, and as they pass by me in that high speed squealing sound, which is extremely exciting, and it just makes your pulse start to speed up and you get all sweaty and you're just all flushed. It's just the most amazing feeling in the world as you're timing them and you start to think about what their strategy is. There is absolutely no way that I would want my esposa telling me I have to go to the bathroom, I need some popcorn, I'm cold, where's the beer hawker? None of that. So to defeat Pierre and Lionel, I'm going by myself to the Formula One races. End of story.
Bravo.
Thank you very much, everyone. You displayed some amazing fortitude in your speeches. And finally, Karen, about that argument, to quote John McEnroe, you cannot be serious. You cannot be serious.